Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and today is November 25th, 2020, the day before Thanksgiving here. We'll be heading off within a few hours to head up to the White Mountains in New Hampshire and relax. I'll be up there. We'll do Friday's video up there, by the way, so if you see a different background, that's why I'm up in the mountains. But at any rate, I promised last week I'd get around to putting together something for the upcoming sales in Hong Kong that are coming up just in a week or so. Bonhams, Christie's, and Sotheby's all have a sale there. And I also wanted to mention, too, that there are two sales happening in Paris around the same time. The catalogs are up on the website. We uploaded all the catalogs we could get so we'd be all caught up, and they're all here. I think there's 14 of them up right now. The top two rows in the reference section over on Bidamount.com. And just a quick reminder to find them, go to the landing page on Bidamount and click right here. And it's the first auction catalogs and books is the first section, and it'll bring you over to this page, and that's where they all are. We're up to 606 auction catalogs now on the site, which is pretty terrific. I'm really happy about that. It takes a lot of work, but it's worth doing. It's fun. It's nice to be able to get a hold of them. If you're out on the road, you pull out your phone, you can flip through a catalog and check something, and it works out just great. All right. Now, a couple of things I wanted to mention. One of them I started with was this Arts of Asia sales that are happening. Christie's and Sotheby's both have sales in Paris coming up, but the Sotheby's sale looked particularly interesting, especially with the cover lots on here. It's a very, very nice auction. If you're in Europe and you're looking at this, check this sale out. There's some great stuff in here. There's some extremely rare porcelains. There's some very, very nice moon flask, like this example here. It's a very, very fine Qing Dynasty, Yongzheng, Marken period flask estimated at, what's the estimate on this? 150 to 250,000 euros. Or roughly 167 to 279,000 dollars US. Very fine example. We've seen them before. They're very, very rare. They started out initially making this form in the Ming Dynasty, of course, and then the Yongzheng period they did some more of them. But this is a particularly attractive example, and we're going to come back later. As always, we'll circle back and see how they did. There's a good bit of information on this, and the catalog notes on the website are also very, very good. But one of the things that really caught my eye was this absolutely great pair of seated bronzes that are on the cover lot. And these are based on Sung to Yuan Dynasty examples. They're about 12 inches tall. They're carrying a pretty good estimate, though, $560,000 to $780,000 US. But I urge you, if you're a bronze buyer or you have an interest in bronzes, come over and check these out, because the stylization, the way the faces are done, the simplified headpiece, the way the robes are draped, the patina, all of it really make these interesting to look at and show you the quality of work that was done in bronzes during the Song and the Yuan in those early days pre-Ming. And you notice how involved and intricate this casting is with all this open space in here. These were very difficult to cast, and very fascinated to see how they do, because it's a pair, and I don't think these have been on the market in a very, very long time, which is typical of French sales. You'll notice the Parisian sales especially, they get things in there and they generally come out of French or European estates, and they often are objects that have not been on the market in maybe 100 years or more, 150 years even. But when a lot of great material came out of China into France after the sacking of the Ming Yuan Palace and that whole terrible history. But it resulted in some great artwork being in Paris. The Guimet Museum was based on a collection by Mr. Guimet, who bought a great deal of material in the late 19th century. And so forth. So that's a fabulous looking pair of bronzes, I think. And there are a lot of other bronzes there. French sales always have lots of bronzes in them, the Parisian auctions. And at the back end of the catalog are a lot of very, very fine porcelains. So they're going to be worth checking out. One of them is, in particular, is this very nice Beijing sort of coral red or ruby red ground bowl. I wish they made the pictures a little bit bigger, though. I think I understand the visual impact aspect of it, but they're making the pictures sometimes in some of these catalogs lately a little too artistically small. I think that bowl should have been a good bit bigger. At any rate, it's estimated at $112,000 to $167,000 US, but it's a small bowl too. You have to realize it's only 3 or 4 inches in diameter. These are very, very small, so maybe that's what they're trying to imply by taking tiny photographs, but it makes it difficult to examine them. And then on the back of the sale, of course, there's a lot of good jades, some good paintings, and so forth, 20th century paintings. And then beyond that, in the second part of the sale are some very fine porcelains. There's some screens, as well as some scholars' objects, and there's some Japanese material at the end, because they often over there they throw Japanese things they do sort of a general Asian sale. And there's a couple of very fine Japanese pieces in here. In particular, this really, really lovely, let's see if we can blow this up a little bit. This Japanese plaque, Meiji period plaque. It's based on a design by Watanabe Sete, and it is estimated at $8,000 to $11,000. And also this very fine Kakeyamon little teapot up here, which I liked a great deal. It is a 17th century example. Looks like I might have a repair on the handle, but reasonably estimated, $900 to $1,300 US. And also this great big three-legged dispenser. Beautiful example, Edo period, probably 17th, early 18th century, and with an estimate of $1,700 to $2,500 US currency, or 1,500 to 2,000 euros. All right, and that's the French sale. But you want to check it out, especially if you're a buyer over in Europe. Get over to Paris and get to these sales because they offer some great things. And at the back of the catalog, I wanted to mention this. If you're a Suba buyer, check out lot 194. All of these Subas. A whole lot of Subas. Most of them are Meiji period, maybe a little later, but quite a collection of Subas. Very interesting lot, and they're estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 euros, or $2,500 to $3,300. I think that is an absolute great buy. All right, they're basically pricing them out at about $100 a piece or less. So if you're a Suba, you're a Japanese arms buyer, you want to check that out. And there's a very nice lot of inlaid Edo and Meiji period Subas before it that are inlaid with gold and metals and so forth. And some of them have the blocked holes in them. So I had an inquiry about this week, actually. Somebody asked why those holes sometimes are blocked on these Subas. We're going to pull this one in as much as, I think that's as much as it'll come. This one right here. They blocked them because they sometimes they didn't need the hole, because the way it was mounted on the sword, that hole was there to allow the pick and a small knife handle to protrude up into it. And if they didn't have it, they would block it for the person that was using it, because it was an unneeded aspect, and it provided a little more protection with the guard, and that's why it was used. All right, now let's mosey on over to fine Chinese ceramics and works of art. We're going to focus mostly now on the Bonhams and Christie sale. The other video we did, the Sotheby's had a really, really strong sale, series of sales. This time around, it's Bonhams and Christie's. And Christie's has some great stuff, but we're going to cover Bonhams first, because they've really stepped up in this sale with some very good furniture, as you can see, and some great decorative arts, including some really rare brush pots. All right, one of the first things I wanted to talk about was, again, bronzes. Is this very nice, good size Warring States period bronze. It's a handsome example. It's good size. It's 13 inches tall, and it's got the most wonderful surface on it. And I wanted to blow this up so everybody could see it. And the other thing that's interesting about this bronze is you can see how you can actually see very clearly. Sometimes you can't see it that clearly. The casting breaks right here. These were generally done in a 4-part mold, and you can see where the mold came together here, which I think is great. You can see how they built it. The mask handle on it is very typical Warring States work. Low relief. Very delicately done, and as you can see, the decoration on the bronze itself is all done in fairly low relief, but beautifully cast. And here again, you can see the sections where they came together with this series of lappets is tilted in a little bit. and so forth. Nice patina, and it appears to have its original lid. If you go to look at this, or you want to talk to them about it, ask them if that's the original lid or not, because they are very hard to find with those. It's estimated at $23,000 to $28,000, but what a beautiful bronze. And the next one over is this excellent one, another Warring States bronze. That's inlaid with malachite. It's a ritual bronze. It's a beautiful example. It even comes with one of those elegant boxes. But I wanted to blow this up so everybody can get a good look at it, because it's just an exceptional example. And on the bottom site down here at the bottom, you see a little plus sign, and you can just click on that and give it a second or two, and you'll notice that the image clarifies, because they do their picture loading, so it sort of loads in sections, it's for very high resolution. And here you can see again this low relief mask and these beautiful inlays of malachite and gold on this bronze. It's a beautiful example, right up to the top. Nice incrustations all the way down the body, in the crevices and so forth. Good color, and watch the bottom part of the screen load. There it is, right down to the base. Nice example. Absolutely wonderful. And this one is also pretty good size. It is 17 inches in height. It's bigger than the other one. Estimated at $65,000 to $100,000, but a very nice piece. And these stone inlaid bronzes are sort of rare. They didn't do them all that often. There was that very, very rare one that sold for millions a few months ago, but this is more typical of the type of piece you're going to find if it's bronze and it's early and it's inlaid, more along this idea. And then onto this, the Song to Ming Dynasty goose. I love this thing. It's inlaid with gold and silver. I'm going to put up the one with the black background because you can see it better. Give it a second to load. There it is. All right. This is a wonderful thing. This is an absolutely wonderful thing. Let the picture load fully, and you can get a real good look at it. This gold and silver inlay technique was also brought back, as many of you know, heavily in the 18th and 19th century. They did it, but this is an early one. Late Song, early Ming Dynasty. Beautiful quality, great patina, and this is not a huge bronze. These are only 4 or 5 inches or so in length and height and so forth, but they do provide some outstanding images, so you can really get in and look at this, see how the casting was created, where they focus to inlay and do decorations and so forth, and you get a real sense of the craftsmanship that went into this piece. It has an estimate that's fairly stiff, $77,000 to $100,000, but not out of line, because these are very, very rare, and these duck form vessels, wine ewers, were ritualistic in nature, and they provide a good bit of information on it. There's a whole section here on the prototypes of the ewer, where it came from, and so forth. It was cataloged, drawings that were done of these, and so forth. And they give where there's a few other examples. Michael Goodweiss, the London dealer, had one of them not long ago, and they mention it in there. All right, and then over to this. This is a really rare bronze. This is a Chang. I got to pronounce this probably. Chao Guan Lu's, and these were only made in a very short time period in 1733 during the Yongzheng period. These were made for the imperial court specifically. They kept very good records. They only made a handful of these. They're fantastically rare, and they were used for ritualistic purposes, and they would have been flanked by beaker vases and so forth. This one's about 24 inches tall, but the quality of the work on this thing is breathtaking. It almost looks modern. When you look at this part here, you almost think, my God, that looks brand new. No, it's not. It's Yongzheng's studio work. These were, as I said, they were ordered just for the duration of within the span of a few months in 1 year in 1733, and just fantastic quality, beautiful patina, and there's only a handful of these known. These are really, really rare. So this is basically Mecca for the Qing Dynasty imperial collector of bronzes. This is as good as it gets, and it's got a strong estimate on it, well deserved. You have to refer to the department for it, but my understanding is that it's in the $3 to $5 million range. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's right up there. but it is one of the rarest things that's going to be auctioned in the next month anywhere in the world as far as Chinese art goes. And we'll see how it does. And this is going to be in Hong Kong. And it was in a private German collection. It was acquired at the end of the 19th century and has not been on the market since, which will absolutely, if the history has any meaning, it's going to drive the collectors crazy, because it's one of those things that just doesn't come up. There's no mention of another one having been sold anytime, and this is a real rarity for the imperial collector. Just a great thing. And then over to here to this. This I think is just fantastic. I mentioned it last week in the video because I like Peking glass a great deal. I think it's absurdly undervalued in the market. And this is an 18th century Peking glass, what they call them, snowflake overlay bottles, overlay pieces, but it's done in the form of a brush pot, which makes it very rare. They didn't do a lot of them in brush pots. And on it are depictions of the four trades: the artist, the scholar, the farmer, and the merchant. And they're shown on here. Here's the farmer at the bottom with his ox and so forth, and the scholar up in his studio, and then you can turn it and see the other occupations of the merchant and so forth. And this is a beautiful example. I don't know how it'll do. Because Peking glass, like I said, it's undervalued. This has a $77,000 to $100,000 estimate. We'll see if it gets there. It is not marked, as far as I know. They seemed, it's 5 inches tall. They seem to think it was probably done in the 18th, early 19th century, and it's been in a private collection for a long time. Kate Sturgis Buckingham, I don't know who she was. She owned it before 1925. Peking glass was heavily collected at the turn of the last century. It's sort of interesting. We had an estate we were involved in years ago up here, and they had, I think it was 5 or 6 Marken period Qianlong faceted bottle vases that we had on an auction, and they all did very, very well. One collector was a huge collector at the time in Southeast Asia, and he had a representative. He bought all of them. And paid a lot for them too. But at any rate, this is a wonderful example, and I hope it does well. All right, and then over here to important Chinese ceramics and works of art. At Christie's, this is Hong Kong on November 30th, and there's some exceptional pieces of porcelain in the sale, particularly on the front end of it, and they show them right away, right up top here. If you check it on the catalog or come here, you have the really fine, rare Northern Sung incise decorated bowl, another Yongzheng dish with flowers on it, some Dwao bowl, and this very, very lovely poppy cup with Yankai decoration. This is a real rare bird right here with the poppy decoration. And down here are a couple of chrysanthemum dishes. We're going to take a look at them. Here are the chrysanthemum dishes. These are fantastic. These are part of a known type of a genre of painting that was done on Chinese porcelain during the Yongzheng period. As you know, famille rose was developed and brought in by the Jesuits around 1717 in China, and then really flourished during the Yongzheng period as far as what they were able to do with it, especially under the guidance of Tang Ying, the kiln director. But this is a beautiful pair of dishes. They only made this particular dish in a couple of sizes. They made them in the 6-inch size, basically in about an 8-inch size. They never made them on big pieces. These were all done very delicately, very personally on small pieces. This one has a nicely molded rim, which makes it very, very rare. And it's a pear, all right? And this drawing of the chrysanthemums done in this manner is reminiscent of work that was done during the Sung Dynasty when they painted flowers. And the Jesuit, what was his name? Giuseppe Castiglione. He was known for painting these flowers as well, and his style of painting, of course, caught on with great popularity in the Qing court, the Yongzheng and Qianlong periods. But here you have this beautifully painted famille rose chrysanthemum, and this particular pattern. These are the only two plates that are known to have this pattern, and they have an enormous estimate: $1.9 to $2.5 million for these two 6-inch dishes. We'll see how they do. They are extremely rare, and the last time they were on the market was just a little over 12 years ago in 2008. All right, and that can sometimes work against things these days, especially if the owner's been trying to sell them privately before the auction, then they decide to auction them. It makes it difficult, but if these had just been in one collection and they haven't been re-exposed to the market, they could do very, very well. All right, now over here to this is this ginormous mid-Ming Dynasty seated bronze, this big fat Buddha. It is, I think it's 28 inches high. This is a big one. This would have been a private commission or a commission for a very important figure to have made, maybe for a temple or something. Absolutely superb casting throughout this thing. The very, very heavy detailed eyes, the way the crown is done around the top, lots of detail. When you look at these bronzes, because they make a lot of copies of these, always check the headpiece up top. How good is the decoration? How defined is it? Because a lot of the copies, they get really sloppy up at that part of the bronze for some reason. But notice how deeply and well done the lotus blossoms are done in these great big hands, these big sort of fatty hands with the Buddha swastika on the center, and then the way the fabric is tied midsection around his waist in this ruffled edge. Just a beautiful quality casting and in great condition with a lot of gilding on it. Sometimes they re-gilded these afterwards. People that wanted to benefit a temple to show fealty, they would offer to have one of the more important bronzes re-gilded sometimes as a gift to the temple, especially when they were sort of freshening them up. But and I don't know if that ever happened to this one, but boy, the gilding on this looks awfully good. And it is estimated at $972,000 to $1,166,000 U.S., or 7.5 to 9 million Hong Kong. But a great example. And then on the porcelains in this sale, I think this is the first lot in the sale. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the first lot is this really rare Lotus Dingwear bowl with a copper rim on it, and it is absolutely beautifully decorated. The Lotus petals on this are really interesting, the way they did them. They did large ones and small ones. Sometimes they just did all sort of the same scale. And this one, the way they did it, it gives it sort of a bit of three-dimensionality to it. And it's a nicely shaped bowl, nice rounded size, nicely proportioned foot down at the bottom. And then they applied this very attractive copper rim over it to protect the edges on it. Often these bowls, the rims on them were not glazed. They would leave them unglazed for the application of the copper rim. And here's a picture of what the bottom of it should look like. Typical early Dingwear, creamy glaze coming up and often spilling over onto the bottom side of the foot like this. And the clay can have this sort of grayish texture to it, sort of sandy looking, and then this nice glaze in the middle. Now, they make a lot of copies of these too, as they do with everything. These are extremely rare, okay? If you find one at a local auction, be very leery of it. If you see one on internet anywhere, be very, very leery of it. This one is estimated at $777,000 to $1 million U.S. It is not a very, very big bowl. It is... let's see, this is 12 inches in diameter. It's a good, hefty, medium size, for a table. And it hasn't been on the market for a long time. But what's interesting in the footnotes, it was bought at Blewett & Sons back, I guess, in the 1930s. It sold at auction in 1931 for 150 pounds. And somebody bought it from Blewett's for 175 pounds. And here it is, 70, 80 years later, with a $777,000 to $1 million estimate. Very nice. And by the way, I wanted to mention, if you come over to the Christie site, they are now including these dandy little videos where you can look at things like this. I like this. And you can blow it up right there. There you go. And you can get a good look at the bowl. It's as though you're handling it. I think this is a very nice feature that they now offer. You can look up here at the glazes to see how the glaze is working. You can see the reflection of the glaze, which is very important, how thick it appears. And they have a good view of the detail, the insides decoration and that lotus pod in the middle. Just a very interesting presentation. But the interior decoration on this bowl is really well done. Beautifully done. Here's a good detail of it. And if you come over and look at it, you can really pull it in. And you can see the freehand nature and that it was done, and how the artist quickly cut into the bowl and decorated it and shaped it. There's a style to it. And that style is not usually very well done on the modern copies. If you get a sense of it, it's an easy way to tell them apart, and also the creaminess of the glaze. And then over here, that really rare Yankai Poppy Cup. These are very rare. They were made just briefly toward the high period of the Yongzheng period. It's estimated at $900,000 to $1 million. But the enamel decoration on this is so fine. It's so very refined. And you have this beautiful poppy plant coming up out of the ground. Poppies were a popular painting subject matter for Chinese artists. They were popular also in Europe at the same time. There was a lot of interest in the poppy plants, and not just for the drug benefits, just because they were considered so beautiful. There's a good write-up here at the bottom, and it was last sold at Christie's Hong Kong in 2008. And again, the same rule hold here. You know, if it's truly been fully off the market all that time, it'll probably do pretty well. All right. And then over to this. This is the Walter Vincent Smith collection auction from Springfield, Massachusetts. This is not all of their collection. They pulled out a dozen things to sell. They're on a fundraiser to freshen up the museum. If you come to Massachusetts, you're in the central part of the state, go to the museum. It's out in Worcester. It is an absolutely Worcester Springfield area. It's a wonderful museum. I was there many years ago, and it's an interesting museum because it's really the results of a person collecting in the 1880s and 90s, early 20th century. And when he died, when Mr. Smith died, he left his house to become a museum in perpetuity, and he bought the best of the very best. And if you come over here, you're going to see what they're selling to as a fundraiser for this. And it is not all of their jade. They have a huge jade collection. It's just a few pieces, and we'll take a look. One of the things that really jumped out at me in the jade area was this enormous Jade Rue Scepter, Qianlong period imperial scepter. Superb quality, absolutely superb quality. And this thing is big. It is 16 inches long. And why that's so interesting is that you have to imagine, and it's pure white. The color on this stone is very, very good from one end to the other. You notice how even and white it is. It's very, very beautiful. And the size of the block of jade that this had to be cut out of to come up with a 16-inch long Rue Scepter with good color from beginning to end, and the highly refined manner in which the chimeras were done, and the pearl coming down out of the sky. And then you have this delicate, elegant, low relief carving up here, which you also saw in the same period. You saw it in the 18th century on brush pots. They had a technique of doing low relief carving. And then this sort of very gutsy, good luck bats here at the top, sort of clambering over one another at the head of the scepter. Beautifully done. Estimated at $194,000 to $324,000. I think that sounds very reasonable for that. I may be out of my mind. Who knows? But I think that's a great piece of jade. Very handsome, and it hasn't. As I said, it was bought by Mr. Smith prior to 1910. There it is, George Walter Vincent Smith, Springfield, Mass. All right, and then hop over here to this superb Yongzheng to early Qianlong period piece of cloisonne done in archaic form with this mask on it. And if you're looking at yourself saying, I haven't seen many in this style before, it's because these are also very, very, very rare. The gilding on this was superb. The decoration is great. It's not signed or dated, but they know stylistically when it was made. And here you can see the introduction of soft famille rose pinks again onto the body, which makes it quite interesting because this is a very early example, and then you have this sort of elegant 18th century style lappets running off the top, and these phoenixes coiling around the bottom and all that. It's just a great example, and it's estimated at $388,000 to $648,000, but it's a rare bird and has been off the market for 100 years, and it's big. This thing is 25 inches tall. I thought it was big. This is not, because they made this same style of cloisonne. It's difficult to tell from pictures, and some of them are only 8 or 9 inches tall. They could be very small. This is a big one. This is a beast. This is a great big bronze. And the other thing they have up is coming along is this thing, also in the Smith collection, is this Xiaolou figure with this scepter. And the quality of carving on this is just absolutely stupendous. And if you look at it in some detail, you notice how very smooth. There's a sheen to the jade, the way it should look. It shouldn't look like overly polished glass. Jadeite can look like that, but this is nephrite, and it's got this very soft sort of matte finish. And the details of Qianlong's face are just, he looks human. I mean, he looks like he could be moving. The cheeks, the lips, the nose, the way the eyes are done, the layers and layers of skin around the eyes, and his beautiful mustache flowing down, and then you have the wrinkles in his head and so forth. But all the way around, they didn't miss a spot on this. The peach is beautifully done, the facial expression of the deer, and again, that very fine polish, that beautifully polished surface with no waves or ripples in it, just down to a right nice matte finish. Even his ears, just all the way down. This is such a gem, really is, and the big folds and the robes and everything. Very gutsy, and it's estimated at $648,000 to $907,000, and it's a heck of a piece of jade. And this was a good sized piece. It was 12 inches, 10 inches, 10 and almost 11 inches tall, 10 and 11/16 inches tall, 27 centimeters. But it has a beautiful, beautiful. They mention it has a very fine, soft polish in the description. All right, and then hopping over to this sale, this is inspiring the mind, the life of the social scholar and official. And we're going to go through here because I wanted to get back to some of the things that have been doing well in this. And then on to this really handsome Qing Dynasty 18th century Qianlong cabinet. These are incredibly rare. They're inlaid with spotted bamboo. It's the cabinet form is a Ming sort of style cabinet, but these were done in the 18th century, and they were inlaid with spotted bamboo down the front, and they use two different patterns, which I think is lovely. Over here you have these sort of curvilinear block elements, and on this side you have this honeycomb pattern you also find on Chinese porcelain of the 18th century. Around the rims, border rim decoration. They use them on export wares and so forth. But this is a very, very rare cabinet. As I said, there's only one or two others known that were done like this with a parquetry inlay, the way that was so popular in Europe. They may have adopted it from the Europeans because the parquetry and marquetry work was so popular there for a long time. And here you're seeing it in this cabinet. And often the inlays that they did use when they did do wood inlays in China, they did use bamboo. And it is estimated, I think pretty reasonably, $337,000 to $414,000. So I'll be very interested to see how that does, because furniture's been on an absolute tear lately. And there's a couple of more pieces I want to look at in a second. One of them is a really rare pair of cabinets on stands. And then over to this Sung to Yuan Dynasty. I'll check the exact dating on it, but that's what it looks like to me. Gilt bronze with a creature with a lotus bowl on his back. And these earlier pieces, the Sung to Yuan Dynasty, you notice how thick the lotus petals are on these. As time went on, they got thinner and thinner, but in certain pieces back then when they cast them, they use these very thick lotus petals. And when they do the copies, they generally don't do it. And they also did things like this with a ball, the support ball with the Rue Scepter. It's open work in here. You notice it's hollow. It goes inside and again here. And he's got that ferocious look on his face. He's baring his teeth. Just a lot of animation here. This is a real nice object, and a great surface. It's patinated beautifully over the years. And Five Dynasty... They're dating it as a Five Dynasties piece, which is roughly Sung Dynasty. It's a nice piece. And then over here, this is a very interesting bronze. It's done by, there was a famous Ming artist. This was his name, Hu Wenming. And Hu Wenming was well known for doing these lost wax technique incense burners with these stippled grounds around them. But more often, his pieces have beasts and creatures running around them. This one's rather unusual. It has Buddhist symbols, the conch shell and the fire wheel and all that, which makes it very unusual for him. And this is a handsome one. The patination on it is good. And this was his style. He was known for this. They copied a lot of them. They copy them a lot today because these are quite valuable and rare. But this one, I think, has a pretty reasonable estimate, $12,000 to $15,000 US. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go through that, because we've seen there's more standard pieces sell for $18,000 to $25,000. but it's a very handsome incense burner. And Hu Wenming was considered to be the finest of the Ming bronze casters as far as incense burners go. And then over here to this late Ming Dynasty double gourd vase incense burner. Here it is right here. Beautifully done, fu lines crawling up over the sides. Nice patina with this lappet top. I owned one of these a number of years ago and ended up selling it to a guy who sold it to a guy. It went down the food line, ended up in a very big collection in Boston. But a very handsome example. Beautifully done. The silk balls are nicely detailed and so forth. I think these are just strikingly attractive. And here you have the two dragons fighting over the pearl at the top. And this was a fairly well-known pattern that they used, or construct they used in handles, especially from this period. It's estimated at $19,000 to $23,000, and we'll see how it does. These are not horribly big. This is 6 inches tall. These tended to be pretty moderate in size, but very delicate, very personal, and a beautiful censer. And now on to the furniture. This was one of the pieces I wanted to look at. This is a really early Ming Dynasty, early for the high-end Ming Dynasty. It's 17th century, but it's early 17th century. And they know that because the planks are so big. The construction that they used, the way they built this, so sturdy, so thick, so strong. And as the Ming Dynasty went on for another few decades, the wood got pretty expensive. Huanwali in particular was getting pretty scarce, so they tended to cut the boards a bit thinner. But in these early pieces, there wasn't much concern about a wood shortage, so they carved them heavy and thick, and you have these big openings on the end. This is sort of a rare type with these protruding Rue Scepters, again, thick and heavy, very gutsy, very expressive. And this table would have belonged to somebody who was pretty important, a wealthy landowner or a wealthy government official, but somebody pretty high up the food chain owned this. And it looks to be in nice condition, and as I said, thick and heavy, very gutsy, and it's got a $388,000 to $648,000 estimate. And if the furniture prices of the last few sales are any indication of where the market is for these things right now, it could bring a lot more than that. And then on to this very dandy little Huanwali incense table, Ming to early Qing Dynasty, but done sort of in the manner of Sung Dynasty tables. And what's very interesting, this is an incense table, so it's pretty small. But what's interesting is the placement of the stretchers up so high. We're typically used to seeing stretchers on tables being more down here, more typically often around the bottom. But there's nothing linking the bottom legs of this table together, which is sort of interesting, which makes it pretty vulnerable to breakage. But this is a very rare little table. Really is. And it's not a big table. It's estimated at $363,000 to $492,000. Huanwali, they called it a Shangan. All right, and it is just 31 inches tall, and it is only 14 inches wide at the widest spot on the top. So it's not a big table, but very handsome, very pretty, and good color. This is one of the big events, and this is something a lot of people this pair of cabinets, something a lot of people are talking about. They are mid to late Ming Dynasty, obviously. They came from DSY Yip, the Ming Furniture book collection that was sold in, it was sold at Sotheby's Hong Kong in October 2015. These were lots 1. You can look up the price if you want, lot 115. And I don't know how much the prices mean from that time when these sold, because the prices of Ming furniture have gone up so much. But what's very handsome, what's really nice about these cabinets, if you look at the door panels, they were made from the same piece of wood, and then the wood was folded out to mirror, like matchbook marble, the way they cut marble and so forth. And the graining of the wood was fully taken advantage of by the maker on both fronts. Very handsome. And what's amazing is they have their bases. They have these big bases, because often these are long gone. They've been broken, they rotted out, they got used, they got damaged by moisture and the weight sitting on top of it. The moisture would weaken the legs, and they'd just get rid of the base and just end up with this part, sort of from here up. And that's what you typically see on a lot of these cabinets that are around today. These are round corner cabinets, and they have their full bases in a $2 to $2.5 million estimate. So we'll see if 5.5 years has made much difference. But I got a feeling if the last few auctions are any indication, these should do pretty well. And then on to this, one of the last things I wanted to show everybody was this pair of they call it Wang Zi Shi. And he was a scholar from the 3rd century who was famous for his calligraphy and poems. And here he is sitting in a window looking out at ducks. And the story goes that he learned to draw by observing the gracefulness of ducks swimming in water and how they moved, undulated through the water. And he learned to draw and paint with his brush in that manner like a duck. And that's why this is sort of interesting and symbolic. It is absolutely outstanding quality. The quality of the carving here, the facial expression of the little boy, the details, the scholar's books on the table, and the very, very successful carving of this 3-dimensional terrace that he's sitting on. Keeping in mind that there's no depth to this at all, virtually, maybe a 1/4 of an inch at the most, and it looks like it's really coming off the pot. It's just beautifully done, and all of the work right up through the top is just excellent. And it's estimated at $103,000 to $129,000, but it's a rare scholar's object. It's lacquer, Qianlong period. It is not dated, but they did include this, which was kind of nifty. It's not dated, but I love how they do these flattened out images, so you can get a sort of a landscape view of the whole piece. There he is, the scholar watching his ducks, and all the way over. Just absolutely great. And that's it. So there's a lot to look at. As I said, there's 14 catalogs at the beginning over on the Bidamount site in the book section here. Come over, go through them. You can enjoy them through the holiday weekend. And when the sales are over, we'll come back. We'll go back through and sort of, as we always do, and take a look at the prices. And we'll probably do that next week. As long as we can set aside the time to get it done after the holiday. We're always busy. But that's about it. If you enjoy the videos, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Visit us over at Bidamount.com. If you have questions about something you own, use the identification assistant thing on the site there, or if you're looking at something at auction, you can use the preview assistant thing to find out what it is, if you should buy it. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're in the United States. Have a wonderful weekend no matter where you are. Anyway, we're lucky here. We're getting a 4-day break. And we'll be back next week. I'll be back Friday with the regular video. And have a great holiday, everybody. And be careful out there. All right. Bye-bye.